If you're growing plants in Leca, the way you set them up matters more than you think. A Leca setup is basically how your plant, the Leca, and the nutrient solution are arranged, and it can make or break your plant's health. Today, I'm comparing the two most popular Leca setups, the Wick and the Submerged setup, so you can figure out which one is best for your plants, your environment, and your care routine. I'll break down exactly how each one works, what the pros and cons are, and what to watch out for. I'll also explain why I avoid the super trendy glass vase method, even though a lot of people love it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which setup to try and how to avoid the common mistakes that can lead to root rot and plant death. Let's get into it. When we talk about a Leca setup, we're talking about how the plant and the clay balls sit in relation to the nutrient solution in the cache pot. The two most popular methods are the Wick setup and the Submerged setup. Both have their strengths. Let me show you how they work. Let's start with the Wick setup. In this method, a wick is placed inside the nursery pot during setup. One end sits in the Leca and the other dangles out the bottom. When you place the nursery pot into the cache pot, it stays suspended above the water level, but the wick dips into the nutrient solution and draws it up into the Leca. At the start, when you just place your plant in Leca, the roots don't sit in the solution, but they still get moisture. This setup is ideal for plants that hate staying too wet. Plants that don't like wet feet, like snake plants, ZZ plants, succulents, and even some sensitive alocasias. And you can control how damp the setup stays by adjusting the thickness or length of the wick. A thicker or longer wick draws up more water, while a thinner or shorter one limits how much reaches the Leca. If the wick is too short or too thin, the Leca may dry out, especially in warmer weather or in a room with high airflow. Self-watering pots with two-part systems work really well for this method. Things to watch out for. Make sure the nutrient solution does not touch the base of the nursery pot. If the pot sits too low or the cache pot is overfilled, you've accidentally created a submerged setup, and that's not what we want here. I'll explain why this may cause root rot and lead to plant death a little bit later in the video. Another important thing to watch out for: avoid using cotton for your wick. Cotton breaks down, gets moldy, and effectively stops wicking the way it should. I use microfiber rope or strips usually pulled from mop heads. They wick water really well, last a long time, and are easy to get your hands on. And finally, make sure your wick is thick and long enough to keep the Leca evenly moist. Next up is a submerged setup. The nursery pot sits directly inside the cache pot, so the Leca touches the nutrient solution at the bottom. This works well for plants that enjoy consistent moisture like pothos, peace lilies, philodendrons, and Hoyas. Let's not forget spider plants. But there are some important things to keep in mind when using the submerged method. Don't overfill the reservoir. If the nutrient solution goes too high, your plant's roots can end up completely submerged, and that's where problems start. Roots need oxygen to function. They use it to convert sugars into energy, which powers everything from nutrient uptake to new growth. When the roots are sitting in too much water without enough air, you create what's called an anaerobic environment. That just means there's no oxygen. And when there's no oxygen, harmful bacteria and fungi that cause root rot start to thrive. The roots can't breathe or do their job properly, and if root rot takes hold, the plant can go downhill fast and even die. To avoid this, I aim for the nutrient solution to just reach the bottom layer of Leca. I try to keep the water level below the bottom third of the nursery pot. That way, the Leca stays moist, but the roots still have access to oxygen. Using an opaque cache pot to stop light from reaching the nutrient solution is important. When light gets in, algae quickly starts to grow, and it doesn't just look bad, it can be a bit annoying to clean. It clings to everything: the roots, the leca, and the inside walls of the pot. Ceramic pots are perfect because they're opaque and look good. Just make sure they're glazed on the inside so they don't leak or stain your shelves. If I don't have the right ceramic pot, I sometimes use clear plastic liners, but I wrap them with colored tape to block the light. Easy fix, no algae. A question that comes up time and time again. Well, my plant has been living in leca for some time and the roots have now grown into the reservoir. What do I do? Considering what you've just said. Well, it happens. It will happen. When your plant grows, the roots will grow out of the pot and into the reservoir, and that's okay. Those roots are used to living in a hydro environment, so more than likely they are going to be just fine. There are a few things you can do when that happens. You can chop the roots off, you can just leave them alone, or you can repot your plant into a bigger pot. Things to watch out for in the submerged method. The only downside to opaque pots is you can't see how much water and nutrient solution is left. And that's why I recommend using a water level indicator. It gives you a clear visual without needing to lift the pot or guess. You can find water level indicators online or at some hydroponic shops. Just make sure you get the one that fits your setup. Avoid the really cheap ones you sometimes see on eBay. They tend to get stuck, don't work properly, and are not fit for purpose. Wick versus submerged. Which one is right for you? So now that we've looked at both the Wick and submerged setups individually, let's break down how they compare and help you figure out which one makes more sense for your plants and your lifestyle. How each system works. In a Wick setup, the leca and the roots stay suspended above the nutrient solution at first. A wick sits in the reservoir and draws water upwards, keeping the leca moist without the roots sitting in the liquid. In a submerged setup, the nursery pot sits directly in the nutrient solution. The leca and the lower roots are in constant contact with the water. This creates a much wetter environment around the root zone. Moisture control. Wick setups give you more control. You can adjust how wet the leca gets by changing the wick's length, thickness, or how deep it sits in the leca. That flexibility is helpful for plants that don't like to stay soggy. With submerged setups, there's less control. Once the leca touches the nutrient solution, it stays wet. This works well for plants that like constant moisture, but it doesn't give you room to adjust if your plant reacts badly to the setup. Reservoir size. Wick setups allow for larger or deeper reservoirs because the pot isn't sitting directly in the solution. That means fewer top-ups and more stability over time. Submerged setups limit your reservoir size. You need to keep the water level low to avoid fully submerging the roots, so you'll need to refill more often. Aeration. Wick setups allow a better airflow to the roots. Since the leca stays moist without being saturated, oxygen can still move through the root zone. This helps prevent root rot and keeps the roots healthy. Submerged setup restrict airflow in a way, especially if the water level is too high. Without enough oxygen, the root zone becomes anaerobic, and that's where harmful bacteria and fungi thrive. Watering frequency. Wick setups can go longer between refills, especially if you're using a deeper reservoir and your wick is working efficiently. Submerged setups usually need more frequent top-ups since the solution gets used or evaporates more quickly and the reservoir is smaller. Let's talk about the best plant matches. Wick setups are better for plants that like to dry out slightly between watering. Think snake plants, ZZ plants, succulents, codex plants, and sensitive alocasias. Submerged setups suit plants that enjoy consistent moisture like peace lilies, pothos, philodendrons, and Hoyas. Flexibility and ease of use. Wick setups are more flexible. You can DIY your pots, play with wick materials, and scale the reservoir to suit your care routine. Submerged setups are more beginner-friendly because they're simple to put together, but they offer less control that can become an issue over time. Pot choices matter. One of my favorite parts of Leca plant care is choosing the pot. And it's not just about style. It actually affects how well your setup works. Net pots are my go-to. They have holes or slits for ventilation, which helps keep the roots healthy and reduces the risk of rot. You can buy them online or make your own using a soldering iron on a regular nursery pot. Just do it safely in a well-ventilated space, wear protection, and keep kids and pets out of the way. Cash pots are where you can really have fun. I love ceramic ones that are glazed on the inside. They look beautiful, they block the light, and they hold nutrient solution without leaking. And yes, I have been known to walk around secondhand shops with a net pot in my handbag to check sizing. It's a great way to find unique and affordable cash pots. What about vases? You've probably seen those beautiful Pinterest or Instagram shots of plants growing in glass vases full of leca, and honestly, a lot of people love this method. It can work very well, but personally, I don't use it. Algae almost always ends up growing because the light hits the nutrient solution. I think it looks bad, and cleaning it is a pain, but that's just my opinion. It also makes flushing trickier, and there's no way to stop that buildup once it starts. Some people drill holes into their vases with diamond-tipped drill bits, and there are lots of videos online showing you how to do that, but that is just not for me. And when your plant really takes off and starts to grow really big, it can be very hard to get the plant out of those vases. I've seen so many people break their vases trying to free a root-bound plant. It's stressful for you and the plant. So while it looks great, I'd skip the single vase method if you want something that's low maintenance and easy to work with. Let me know in the comments, are you Team Wick, Team Submerged, or have you tried the vase method yourself? And if you want more detailed plant care content like this, check out my membership at thelecaqueen.com. You'll get exclusive videos and access to our monthly live Q&A sessions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.